Hi, everyone. I am Technical Sergeant Alliser. I've been in the Air Force for just shy of 10 years. A little bit of background is I started off in Army ROTC in college. That didn't pan out since you've heard of the Air Force, right? Shortly after that, the Army was saying pay $30,000 or serve. I served, joined the Air Force, spent about 3 years stationed in Schriever Air Force Base, which is a space comm. So I did a lot of satellite communication links. And then they picked me up for a job where I was essentially doing cybersecurity, focusing on one specific mission set. And I jumped at that because beforehand I was literally a crypto monkey. And I say crypto monkey as in press button, fix line. But after I made that jump, I realized, hey, there's money and better pay and better job title on the other side. I joined what is now known as 1 Bravo 4 Cyber Warfare Operations. From there, after training, I went to San Antonio, stationed in Lackland, and I did a cyber defense team or mission cyber protection team where literally did hunt operations trying to find malware and live adversaries on a network. Did that for about 4 or 5 years, had some nice deployments, some things I can talk about, and then moved over to the organization that kind of controls the Air Force's responses for all cyber in their networks, both defensive and a little bit of offensive. Little caveats I do need to say. First off, the opinions are only myself and not the Air Force. Everyone has to say that that's in the military, right? Second off, because my career field is so small, and by small, there's like 1,300 people in the entire Air Force, both active, reserve, and guard. I've got enough information. You could probably narrow it down pretty quick. If you know who I am, and don't dox me, don't be a Blue Falcon. Cool.
When did you first get into the idea of cybersecurity? Was it this is a good job opportunity, or was it a passion?
I would say it was more a job opportunity. So in college, I started off in computer science and was kind of jumping around a little bit to management with a cyber focus kind of degree. And as that didn't pan out, I went to long haul communication. So dealing with routers and switches and stuff like that. So basically making things talk together. Mm-hmm. And the job opportunity came up where, hey, we're starting up this new thing called Comm Squadron of the Future, or Cyber Squadron of the Future. Essentially, my unit was the pilot program for the entire Air Force. And I had a colonel teaching us his doctoral thesis of what's called functional mission analysis. And like look at a system as a whole and what is truly needed to break it, fix it, and for it to work in general. And then layer cyber on that. I realized in that entire circumstance, first off, senior airman analyzer was like, why am I learning doctoral thesis? But I also realized I was good at it. And the Air Force just kept throwing more and more training at me. And it just became the next natural step of why stay in this job at this location and when I can apply for retraining and get some of the special pay that the Air Force gives for this career field because it's so critically manned and so critical to the Air Force.
When you eventually switched to like actually doing the systems themselves, did you feel like that doctoral thesis helped you understand your work?
Yes, in the sense of that thesis was kind of analyze an entire network, right? And actually not the network itself, but the mission. So if I was working
like humans and all.
Yeah, because for the context, the mission that I was attached to was a space base, so a satellite program of some kind, right? And I kept asking, okay, what happens if this breaks? Can you guys still do the job? And so, okay, they have second and third order means of getting the job done. It's like, okay, that's a lower priority of keeping it safe to if it breaks, but what about is the information secure on it?
Right.
And so like that, just that level of thought process, can you pull the thread? What's the weird stuff that people don't think of? It's kind of in the same way of hackers always like to think about breaking and entering and understanding like lock picking. I've picked up a little bit of lock picking just as a weird hobby, and it's fun to learn how things work.
Right. Because from what I've seen in my completely uneducated civilian life, the human is usually the stupidest part of any computer.
Truth.
Yeah.
It's fun when you start going down the rabbit hole of understanding hacking. And then there's like social engineering hacking. There's a good one. I can't remember the name of the news organization, but the guy went to DEF CON, which is big hacking conference of the world, and they
Hmm.
do it every year in Vegas. And he stupidly said, contacted a few dedicated hackers, and like, I want you to F up my day. And he literally sat across the table from this woman who called into his phone company and acted as if it was his wife with a fake baby crying in the background, having the whole emotional breakdowns like, I needed to do this and do this. And by the end of it all, she had his password, she had access to his account, everything. Like he needed to completely redo everything with that organization because the guy on the other line just listened and heard an emotional woman and wanted to help.
That guy's not getting paid enough to understand the entirety of
Oh
the
no,
cybersecurity
absolutely.
field.
Well, it's our system also, for him, he'll get in trouble if he stops and doesn't help her because hey, she's a customer, quote unquote.
Right.
And yeah, like the system does not incentivize actually thinking.
Yeah, because it only becomes an incentive when there's that small chance that you actually get really screwed.
Oh yeah, there was a network that I worked on. It had previously been compromised, and it had a lot of information that I didn't wasn't appreciative of getting out. And I realized just the system was never designed with security in mind, and that's the biggest thing that kind of stood out to me. Is I will tell you right now, I wish it died in a fire and was rebuilt from scratch because it was just like tacking on new programs. Like, oh, this kind of is tangential to what we're doing here. So the idea was less overhead to make it easier to manage, but they didn't manage or plan security in that development.
Hmm.
There were like so many different projects that had access, their individual managers access to like this critical mainframe that I asked a quick question like, "Hey, does anyone manage who has access or does anything on this server?" Well, no. So we have 60, 100 plus people who have access to this critical, device. I could literally hack into it and make a cron job, which is an automatic script that goes every however long I tell it to, that just pops out, "Hi, I'm Russia," or "Hi, I'm China," and no one would be none the wiser. People don't think security. It's easy to think, "Oh, I have this new suite of tools, and that's the bee's knees that'll protect me from whatever," and it's a band aid at best. But they just don't think how to properly employ it,
Hmm.
or how does my network actually defend itself, or do you have defense in depth, and how do you manage the access to those devices? And it's just like a security posture. um, you don't want to give everyone admin rights so you can control who has elevated privileges, but then Joe Schmo over here is like, hey, I really need to do this, guys. And so they, instead of giving him a special elevated set of privileges, they just give them full blown admin rights because it's easy for the admin and they don't have a special plan in place for specific people in their circumstances. There's a triad or triangle of the things you can do. There's the CIA triad is what we call it in cybersecurity, is confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Pick two.
Mm.
And so that's what happens is because a lot of times it's a business or some large scale organization, i.e., Department of Defense, they always have to have availability. And you don't want to have things change, or you want to have some change management, so you'll keep it in the integrity, or you care about that. Now the question is do you care about it in transit or in storage? Whole other set of concerns. But the confidentiality is, well, if someone can reach in, sure, no one's changing it because of whatever security, but they can still read it.
And when they say pick two, I'm guessing they have a favorite two for each situation.
Yes. So availability is a high priority for a lot of people. You can't do your mission if you don't have access to your tools
Hmm.
or whatever your business is. Confidentiality really kind of comes into play. It becomes a concern when you're dealing with, in a military standpoint, classification stuff or things that could lead to loss of life, so on and so forth. In a business standpoint, the only thing you'd really care is if your credit card information gets lost, or your special research stuff. And so what happens with that is they might subdivide an entire enclave or network that is super secure. The only way you can get onto it is you walk across the hallway, kind of thing. You can do some varying levels of all three, but if you start getting to the point where higher level of confidentiality, the level of access is going to start dropping because, hey, I need to use, like, for me to get onto my work stuff, I have to use a token. And that token, which is essentially my ID card, it has all sorts of certs on it. But if I don't use that token, I can't get access to my stuff. And by the sheer nature of how my personal network reaches to my work network, there's going to be some crosstalk that doesn't happen. I mean, every time you plug in a new software that you have to set it up, make sure everything works right, kind of the same case. But I only have access to control my side, not the
Right.
Air Force's.
You were talking about segmentation as in literally splitting the network physically, but also segmentation in splitting access to different groups and individual users that have privileges. It sounds like a lot of the security aspect comes into play when you're able to really get down to individual things to the extent you need to and say this can be done by this person right then.
Oh, absolutely. You need to make a plan in place. Like, this is designing a network in a perfect world where you basically say, hey, these are your standard users. They should only have access to their email and whatever the primary tool is for things. And then you have a next level of users who additionally may have access to the debugging software or the evaluation equipment. And then from above that, you have the admins who you may even say admins do not have email, because then you have an admin account and then a user account. They should not touch in theory. But what happens is they generally just make admin have powers, and jumping between the two is almost super easy.
If I were to create a network from scratch with just what I've learned so far today, my first question would be, does this person's account need to be able to do this?
Yes, if you wanted to be purely securely focused. But that's the problem. The more secure you make it, the more trouble you're going to make it in the process of building it. Because then, as you're building your network from scratch, it's kind of like the same way if you have a personal server at home, like I do, where I had more trouble trying to gain access to my device than necessary, but I was caring more about availability. I could have blown away all the security stuff, but that was really what was going on.
And would you say that you are currently a individual target because of your work?
My information possibly is compromised, that some adversary nation may have my information. From a strategic standpoint, there's no benefit of actually targeting me unless there was a large scale campaign.
Mm.
Ironically, one of the things is, as military, asking your guys, we have what's called recall rosters. And you're supposed to keep it in your wallet or some means of access all the time. And so it's supposed to have like your rank, where you live, your phone number for your cell phone and your desk, maybe an emergency contact number. The reason is like if someone goes missing, hey, I'm going to send a runner, airman so and so, or sergeant so and so, go check in on them. Especially with us with classification or access, if you're gone on AWOL for X amount of time, they'll send someone to look on you, and it's not like AWOL of, oh, you just disappeared. It's, hey, we want to know if something happened.
Because you're a potential liability if you're compromised, along with being an asset to them.
Yes. And so I conjecture that a recall roster for my organization or a larger organization that I'm a part of got compromised. And the reason I conjecture is I've been getting phishing text messages. Phishing is where someone says, "Hey, look at this," or "This is really cool. Click the link," or try to get me to give information, and they're trying to entice me to interact with it. I spun up a VM on basically a computer that I could just blow away and it no longer exists, and actually clicked the link. It was literally trying to get me to buy a unit shirt, but I then reach out, like the close knit community that is my career field. I would literally go on our community Discord and be like, "Hey, check your phone. You got your weekly or monthly phishing text message," and a few other people like, "Yep, just got it."
Wow, what a
and,
resource.
and here's the thing: is that my organization, to an extent, is supposed to kind of manage some response actions for that, and I didn't think anything of it at first. Like, okay, a random text message. I don't care about it. I don't want a random T-shirt. And then I got a phone call while I was at work. It's like, hey, my organization, our guys, is getting text messages about shirts. We don't even have shirts. So WTF? And the captain sitting next to me kind of just makes a note of it and does nothing. And it's not necessarily a blame on them, but we don't have a really plan in place for that.
Yeah.
Like, who do we tell? What do we do about it? And it got so much that the chief master sergeant of the Air Force, she actually kind of jokingly talked about it and posted a similar thing. It's like, it's happening.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, my personal security, the likelihood of me being specifically targeted is super low.
Mm-hmm.
But the likelihood of if someone targets me and wrecking my day will wreck my day, even if I try to be secure.
Because anybody who's targeting you probably has enough firepower.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the skill set and the time and money behind it. So it's like, what's the point?
Yeah.
Now
yeah.
I have to be smart about like if I download things, but that's about it.
And I'm guessing at work that mindset totally changes to I have to be secure because I'm part of this system.
Oh yeah. So whenever I'm opening email at work, it even makes it so I can't just click the link. I have to actively think and copy the link and put it into my web browser. And then from our, we have multiple secure networks that are isolated. It's kind of like the whole, this is your unclassified, this is your secret, and this is your top secret. And there's additional like subnets, but it really just depends on what they're doing. Because, hey, again, additional level of security is, hey, this is secret, but it's also special secret because like there's all sorts of special sauces out there. And so we're not putting it on the normal TS network or the secret network.
Right. And when you say separated, you mean literally not even on the same switch.
Yes, not on the same switch. There's kind of some crossover, but it's a lot of, tunnels, VPN type stuff. Other times it is literally they are completely separated. The only thing that is identical is my mouse and keyboard and monitors when I press a little KVM switch.
Right.
Keyboard, video, mouse. So I could literally press a button, I'm on one computer. Press a button, I'm on another computer. Press third, so on and so
It's
forth.
like changing the
Literally,
input on your TV, but with a whole machine behind it.
yeah, I literally have one set up for home right now with my laptop linked up to one of my monitors, my second monitor for my desktop. I'm not like super, super, super techie. I have my own little niches, but for a hot second, I was using an old 32-inch screen TV that I got when I was in college, so like 07.
Oh, God.
Yeah, it was just, well, it was funny is I realized I have the capability, but I just don't have a way of mounting it. So I also like pick up woodworking because there's a weird crossover of cyber guys and woodworking. Yeah, I'm one of those people who I may not be super quick at some things, but I will be methodical and just like I can't do it because as soon as I break apart from it, it's like, well, then everything's shot. Like just looking from top down, next one, next one, next one, next one. Kind of going on into a little bit of the weeds, and an interesting example is one of the jobs I was on or missions I was on is we were actually with a mission partner. So we were at their network. So we had some foreign people sitting right next to us. And I was kind of theorizing, okay, if someone has access to the network, they might use compromised credentials. So basically, they have means of using a username and login across the spectrum. So if I see, the theory was, if I saw a username sign in across more than one device, there's a possibility that it's compromised and being used to move across because you're not going to jump between 2 or 3 computers at your workspace. You're going to be your desk, maybe a secondary one in case something happens, right?
Yeah.
And so it then kind of going top down, just analyzing them, kind of setting up some spreadsheet stuff. But then I started seeing these weird, like that does not look like a name. So I poked to the guy right next to me. I was like, "What the heck is that?" And he's like, "Is bad word." Like, what? Uh, it says fuck. What? and what we found is, have you ever gotten onto your computer in a such dazed state that you just immediately jam in your password and hit enter?
Yeah.
They were putting it in as their username.
Oh.
And
Uh-oh.
because of the authentication, like we were using Kerberos, which is you reach out to a server that acts as your ticket granting authority and says, yes, you can get on the network.
Mhm.
Because that system was out in the public, or at least public of I can look at it live on the network, we realized, yes, it sends your username in clear text, but your password in, cipher or hashed format. But if you're dipshit and actually put your password in there, and then we started realizing, oh, there's a lot of people that do that every once in a while. Then it became a game because for their policy, because essentially I now saw a password and we were able to kind of associate like, oh, he immediately logged in right below that on his actual username. I could make that link of username password. So it literally became a game of this dude, this dude, this dude, this dude, and he'd reach out to one of the admins and it's like reset their passwords. So that network that I was on that was doing that, shortly after I left, they went to a token system. So they had to use a token and then use their password. So even if they, revealed their password, it would be almost pointless because you don't have the token that's paired with it.
Mhm.
So for cybersecurity or just gaining access, there's three things that allow security. Something that you are, i.e., your iris, your fingerprint, whatever. Something that you have, so a little token, a little ID card that has a chip in it, a thumb drive that specifically has software on it that runs, and then something that password, a pin, what's those questions that whatever organization that your website you're logging into, what's your first street that you grew up on, what's your first kiss, that kind of stuff. But it's easy to get something something that you have can be taken or compromised. Pairing them together actually makes it more secure. So they went to that network. On the other side, because the military, civilians, and DoD contractors are a bitch and a half to get rid of if they're doing either being just completely waste of space to malicious actions that are near, like, not perfectly malicious, but ignoring the proper procedures. One organization that my team went to previously, they found a passwords.txt.
Oh
He
my
was an
god.
admin.
Plain text, not
Yeah,
hashes.
no, just plain text passwords.
Beautiful.
Dude had access to a bunch of different stuff, routers, switches, so on and so forth. So, I mean, they were doing a scrape for those type of things, and like, that's not right.
Yeah.
Found the guy, slap on the wrist.
Yeah.
A few years later, we come back. We find kittens.txt. Kittens? The fuck? Open it up. Passwords.
Oh my god.
Guess who it was? The same dipshit that we slapped hands on a few years ago.
To be clear, if anyone other than you knows your password, including the system admins, something is wrong because the way passwords get sent is what's called hashing. And if you want to explain that, because you're going to do a better job than me.
Sure. Hashing's kind of it's essentially you take your password and you put it into an algorithm, like basically large scale math problem, and then you jumble that box up, and then out comes a long string, and it is all sorts of, you cannot memorize it, right? And it sends that password or that hash. Now, security wise, it should be that the website or whatever program you're going to takes that hash and compares it to what they have on storage of a hash. In actuality, sometimes some websites will actually take your live password and store it. And so even if you hash it, like it's still going to somehow compare against the live password. It's horrid. The best thing is that I would say is, if you get that whole, you can't use the same password as last time, it's possible that they're keeping your hashes. It's also possible that they're keeping your actual passwords,
Mm-hmm.
especially if it's like it's too similar to your previous password. That's when actually they're keeping your full passwords, and
Yeah.
it's not a hash because it's so far differently. Like, you don't want to have a universal password.
Mm-hmm.
Admit it though, we all do. You have one primary password that you use for too many things. So with that, here's a simple suggestion. Take your universal password. Congratulations, that's still your universal password. But we're going to take a function of what they do for good password security, which is called a salt. A salt is the website will tack on some random string or whatever word that they want associated to it, and then they'll actually put your password in that hash generator, come out with a new hash. And even if you take that same password to a different website, their salt is going to be different to a different other website. So it becomes an additional level of security because you also could, this algorithm is kind of known. So if you brute force, keep adding all of the common passwords to that algorithm, you'll find the common hashes.
Hmm.
So it's essentially like you're just blind squirrel. Eventually, you'll find the nut, right? Adding that salt, the blind squirrel will never find that nut anymore.
I mean,
So
unless
let's,
the salt is broken as well, and if
yeah,
someone allowed that to happen, they really screwed up.
yeah. So with this, take your password and whatever website or thing that you're going on to, be like, okay, this is a banking website that I use for my bank. So let's do, I like money. So let's go ahead and make it say cash money, my password. Or cash and then the three symbols of like one shift 1 2 3 or something like that. And so what it becomes is yes, you know what your main password is, but you also are the only person who can make that association to this website. This is what logically is in my head, and you can add that in. And
Hmm.
so even if one of the things that happens is the website gets compromised, and so dumb website, poor security, congratulations, all of their usernames and passwords are compromised. If you don't know, look up have I been pwned.
Mm.
You can literally put in your password, which ironically makes you feel like you're giving away your password, but they'll look at the known dumps of password compromises of websites and say, yes, your password's been found on there. We recommend changing it.
Yeah.
But even if that's the case of someone taking that dump and associating, yes, we know your username and this password's been used previously, and even if they say, oh, cash money 1 2 3, your normal password, it's not going to work for Netflix because you use uh, whatever your favorite Netflix show is, Squid Games username password.
And it doesn't have to be a complicated thing.
Yeah, making more complex and long passwords. It doesn't have to be super complex, but the more characters you add, the more less likely it's going to be compromised. And additionally, if you don't make it so you use that same password, congratulations, you're more secure. A lot of people like to do password managers. I do not. And that's probably a nature of what it is I do at work where like some websites are blocked. And so like I'd like to be able to get access to my email at work so I can keep an idea of what's going on in my personal life. So yeah, I actually don't use a lot of two-factor authentication sometimes. I know faux pas on the security guy that doesn't. And so
Hmm.
it's a matter of do I care about the risk to reward kind of thing.
Yeah. Would you say that your colleagues are more or less paranoid than you on average?
I would say about the top 10% are more paranoid. The rest are about on par
Yeah.
with me. It's not that far of a deviation. It's just one of those things where there's all sorts of things. I mean, there's people who super delve into it. They run their own home networks. They have their own firewall. Even if they have the modem that is a router that comes from their ISP, so their internet provider. They'll have that firewall in between and their own personal router. I kind of am a foot in that way, but I don't do a lot of that cybersecurity stuff
Yeah.
at home, at least.
Yeah, but you still need to know how the ideas of it all for
Oh
work.
yeah, if I wanted to, I would go delve into it. But it's like one of those things where I know conceptually that it all is there and how to do it, but actually setting it up is going to take a bitch and a half to do it.
Hmm.
It's just like cybersecurity and computers in general. There is so many different subjects that you can get focused in on that you become this like little niche expert, and it's just kind of crazy.
I'm curious, what's your like I guess your loadout. So what's your web browser? What extensions are on it?
So I primarily use Firefox. Ironically, that's not the absolute most secure, but I've gotten used to it now at this point. I just throw on some ad blocker. Ad blocker plus is stellar. Um, Sorry, when I watch some YouTube videos, the ads are just gone. They're deleted. Um, so I should have checked with you first. Other than that, like the things I do, if I think I'm going to do something really sketch, I have a home server and all I do on that is a network attached storage. So I have like
Mm.
16 terabytes. I think 12 of it's actually usable. It just stores all my stuff, but it also has a capability. I run a Plex server off of it, so I can literally. Uh, I download movies, and I'll put it on there, and then I can actually watch it on my TV. I can watch it on my phone, download it, and all that.
DIY
Um,
Netflix.
yeah, pretty much do it yourself. And with that, there's a capability where I can throw in a essentially a virtual disk of multiple operating systems and launch a computer up and make that VM. And so if I will use Ubuntu every once in a while, which is a version of Linux. So not Windows, not Mac. It's the weird dude in the corner who is
Yeah.
talking to himself.
Got the shades on.
Yeah, and the giant beard and has a little bit of that bo. Um, Funny joke I've heard is that sometimes for businesses they want to have that resident neckbeard, the dude who just doesn't listen to any form of business casual or business professional. Like, no, I just walk in jeans and a t-shirt and have a super long up to here beard, because as soon as you get into a conference room and they're having big conversations right next to you, it's like, oh, this guy knows something
Yeah.
because he gets paid all the bucks and doesn't get told to do shit. Fun things that you can do with virtual machines is, first off, if you ever get into a situation where like your computer's acting up, if you have a USB drive preloaded with a image of whatever operating system you want, so like there's a lot of like recovery images that you can do, like pop that in there and run antivirus, malware scan, so on and so forth. I've had to do that for personal stuff every once in a while, like, oh, I've done downloaded something wrong, or
Hmm.
it's just acting all sorts of wonky. One of the things is, okay, do you think that your computer at home is super secure, right? You've locked it down with all sorts of passwords and whatnot. First off, not even going to talk about encryption on your hard drive where everything's encrypted, but I have physical access to your device. If I have physical access and it's not encrypted, I can just literally plug in a device, that USB, boot up that instance of it, and just scan your file path, um, because it's still there in clear text. Encryption, you have to literally go through and intentionally get a piece of software that will encrypt every single bit of data that is on your device, and it takes up a lot of space and a lot of processing power. And if you lose that password, say goodbye to your computer.
What should I do if everything gets fucked in my list of passwords? I'm screwed. My stuff is I'm getting texts saying, "Do you want to log in?"
um, so what I would do is, first off, perfect quotation of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy: "Do not panic." As soon as you start panicking, you start doing things bad. And you start clicking buttons that you shouldn't do. Take a second and realize what is it that's being said. Don't click buttons on that link. Go to the actual website and get their support. You log in, because a lot of times they'll send you an email that says, hey, something shady's going on with your account, do this or whatnot to protect it or whatnot. And if you get freaked out, you'll get compromised. And there's sometimes where it's really good, and if you catch someone on their bad day, I've heard of like literally security experts saying, yep, I just got compromised. It happens. I remember a YouTuber did a whole video of his YouTube account got compromised, and for whatever reason, they deleted all of his videos. And like, he was someone who cognitively thought about security a pretty decent bit. Supposedly, he was able to recover some of it or most of it, but it took a little bit. Two-factor authentication, if you are able to do that, set it up to your phone so that your phone is like your second password. That's something you have. There are ways to bypass that, including just cloning your phone if someone really is wanting to just destroy your life. Also, password managers, there is an inherent risk if your password to get into your password manager is compromised. Well, all those passwords are fucked too. And that's kind of honestly my reason why I don't like the idea of messing with a password manager, because I don't trust my password system for it not to get compromised per se.
Right.
And I don't want like just the mentality of having a 24 32 long bit password. It's like, no,
I mean,
don't
it's
like
a
that.
single point of entry. It's pretty
Hmm.
scary. But I
Yeah.
remember one promising thing was LastPass recently had one of its contractors compromised. They said in the email, yeah, we got compromised and all of your data is safe because we're good at this.
Yeah, that could be the case. It also could be a little bit of bluster to try to protect themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But a company is going to say exactly what is going to benefit them
Yeah.
for the most part. You mentioned something about single point of entry,
Yeah.
and that's honestly one of the things where Internet of Things I don't like too much. I like some of the capabilities, and it does sound smart, but your light bulb does not need to be IP capable and reaches out to China. And that's the thing is like these Internet of Things do that. And okay, Internet of Things. What's the acronym?
IoT.
Security is in there, right? It's not IoTS.
Oh,
Yeah, and that's the thing. It is again going back to that confidentiality, integrity, availability. They care about that availability higher than anything else. Because if I buy a light bulb that I want it to do X, Y, and Z, when I say Alexa or Siri do this, and it doesn't work, well, I bought a defective product. And then it doesn't help that, China likes to put all sorts of weird things in there or whatnot. Like the level of Internet of Things I have is I have Roku TVs. So yes, they do probably reach out a little bit. They're on my normal network. I have a Ring security camera, and I have some Blink security cameras, but yet they're not talking to each other. And so that's kind of the idea. At my previous home, I have ADT as a security alarm, right? Or any of the other guys where they can set it up where, oh, hey, your door, you can have a combo lock that also is Wi-Fi enabled that'll reach out. And if you have your phone app, you can unlock it for people you want in and out. Okay, that sounds cool. Wait, no. And I've heard like not even that concept of, oh, someone hacks into that. I've heard where people link up like their Alexa or whatever, Google, and link that up to their door, and then someone going up to the window real tight like and yells, "Hey Google, open my door." Okay.
what a fucking way to lose your security right there. That's hilarious.
It's thinking outside the box, and that's the thing is if you think so much in the idea of this is secure, how do I come in from the side? That's why hackers like lockpicking. If you want to get down the rabbit hole of pen testing or red teaming, which is literally getting hired by a corporation to sneak into the building, gain access to their servers, and that like literally get paid to become quote unquote robbers or thieves, right?
Yeah, penetration testing, literally like
Yeah.
poking at every single thing.
Yeah. The dude has a lot of YouTube videos, Deviate Olem. Some of the stories that he talks about, just by the sheer nature of physical locks, is atrocious. Like some doors, if you have too much gap between the door and the wall that it closes into, you can literally take a hook and reach in and boop, pop it open.
Ooh.
And most of the time, that's just bad fitting. If the installer is lazy and not putting the proper plate, so there's like you have the door itself. It has the little plunger that comes out, and then have you ever noticed like there's that secondary plunger that like is you have the
little
normal
semicircle cylinder. Yeah.
That semicircle is actually a security feature. It's not supposed to be fully extended when it's in your door frame, because while it's depressed, it will never cycle the rest of that deadbolt. So like, have you ever taken the door and like it's shut, so I can't push open, but then you realize you pull the door a little bit more and it clicks? It's that security feature. Like, oh, it's supposed to be properly secured. Click. No, you actually made it less secure doing that.
Oof.
And if you make your plate, if it's too big of a plate, then that deadbolt security feature is not going to be acted, because now it has like a hole, as big as the Grand Canyon. Let me ask you this: if you have a locked door to a shed, just a normal shed outside in the back, what is your best way to get in?
Sledgehammer to the wall.
Yes, because inherently we secure and make the door frame super strong, but that wall is just sheet metal. And it's the same thing. If you don't think about the outside or the other means of entry, you're not thinking securely.
Yeah, because eventually someone's going to find that weakest link, so it's just a matter of you finding it first, huh? Which is why pen testers make so much.
Yep, there's literally bug bounties where all these different corporations will say, hey, there's a standing, few $100s here, $1,000 there. If you find a bug on our website or whatever that gives you access, let us know and we'll pay you out. So my career field, cyber warfare operations, kind of is not officially deviated between defensive and people who do the security side and offensive, the hackers. So in theory, I could go be a hacker and be taught by the Air Force, but it's a whole other can of worms, right? I've heard stories where those hackers will set up scripts where they'll do their random searches and testing of websites. And come lunch, they'll get a message saying, "Hey, we found X, Y, and Z websites may be vulnerable." And so during their lunch, they'll be on their laptop or whatever, just hammering away and getting compromised, and then writing up a report, sending it to them. Over their lunch, they made like $1,000.
That's wild. I'm sure you've heard the stories of 13-year-olds doing shit like that.
Well, I mean, that's one of the things where there's a lot of public tools available that give someone a few YouTube videos and they can compromise some stuff. So Kali Linux is a variant of Linux, and all it is it is a pre-built operating system that has a lot of preloaded malware or hacking tools that just exploits whatever communications and all these known vulnerabilities and just gets you accessed. Literally, that was part of our training from a security standpoint. Is okay, launch up the Kali Linux, hack your way into this network. And literally, it was scan the device via. You've heard of pinging, right?
Yeah.
For computers, you can also, through the use of pings, determine what operating system it is, what is the open ports that are listening on that device, and those open ports are associated to certain software devices or tools. And so then from there, you can determine what version of some of those softwares is. And it might even say, hey, this is this is our mainframe or our network attached storage. And so you get an idea of what that box is that you're just pinging.
Is that just because Internet Protocol tells you to tell that stuff to anyone?
Yeah.
Wow.
That is an inherent thing. There are security features where you can say, do not reply to pings, or your network can block pinging, or it only can allow certain types of pings, because there's like little variants. Because think of it as your house, right? Normal way is knocking on the door. So, anyone home? Cool. No, I get an idea, but I know the door's there. I go around, keep knocking. That sounds different. That's a window. That's a glass, but it's a little bit larger. Oh, that's a glass door. Just by listening, right? And how it communicates back to you, you can get an idea. Once you know what that software is, what that device is, you can literally just like Google search, or even looking on the Kali Linux, like, oh, hey, this piece of software has this vulnerability. If it's this version, yep, it says that version. Fuck it, let's throw it. And you just literally type in a few pieces of command. It'll set up the hack and just try to get you access.
Here is your reminder to update your shit right there.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing, is updating. Patch Tuesdays, compromise Wednesdays. I was telling you before, is even in the industry there are security levels of communication. TLP amber or orange, and then green and red. I can't remember like the proper terminology. Look up IT cybersecurity TLP. It's literally if you're in the top tier, you're within the trusted sphere of everyone communicating to each other. And so if, hey, AMD or Windows has this major compromise that they're about to push a patch to, they'll give a posted note to those people in the know. And so that may be like, hey, the top guy or the people in the top level may be the system admins, like the absolute management of those system admins. And so then the organization might be the next level down below, where like, we trust this team, so we'll send it out to them. And then like, hey, you're in the know, but you don't really need to know, so we'll send it into you. But the idea is that's a heads up of, hey, this is a compromise. Keep an eye on it. This is how you can at least identify whether or not you've been compromised, and then how you could potentially block it in the meantime until we do a full patch. And then worst case is literally we are dropping a patch in 24 hours. Be by your computer, download it, and freaking get it on your system ASAP.
Yeah.
Because Patch Tuesdays means, hey, here's a list of everyone who left their door open last night. So people are going to start walking around knocking on doors.
Yeah.
The most recent one that I like stood out in my head was Log4j. Everyone was crapping their pants for that one. I mean, it literally, from the Air Force standpoint, it's literally playing whack-a-mole. This new compromise came out, and okay, scan our entire Air Force. Do we have any devices that are exposed to that? Then it becomes, but sir, this device is vulnerable to it, but it's behind 5 levels of firewalls. I don't care. Nope. Johnson, take care of it. Son of a bitch. Bureaucracy and officers trying to say, hey, we need to make sure we're not unsafe. I mean, it's all the stuff associated to cookies, right? Our cookies have such a fingerprint. Have you seen the John Oliver bit about it?
Long time ago.
Yeah, where they were able to identify in DC that three likely senators was looking at some random, I think it was Ted Cruz, quote unquote, porn, or at least they clicked the link. And it's like, because of the way the cookies work, and when you get them, it has like, what operating system are you using? What browser are you using? Like all of that stuff. So like, if you ever go on to whatever shopping, like, hey, I want to look at an idea of whatever this is, congratulations, you're going to see it on Facebook all the time, right?
Yeah.
If you want to stop that, I mean, first off, you can prevent cookies from communicating as much as you can, but secondary, load up like Internet Explorer or whatever, Edge and Chrome, whatever browser you don't normally use, and never sign in to Facebook on that or any of your other stuff. And like, so that way it doesn't have a link of your normal browser with that search.
You mentioned how ads are able to target you pretty quickly. I've got a question a lot of people are going to be wondering. Is my phone listening to me?
It's possible. That's more of like an industry thing of, I don't know what level they're doing. The technology is there. So you literally have a wiretap in your pocket. You have a
Yeah.
wiretap with your Google Mini and Amazon Alexa and all that stuff, because literally they have to constantly be listening to give you all the benefits. And especially if you have Siri or Google on your phone, yeah, that functionality is there. It has to be listening. And again, the companies say they're not tracking your information and what you say, but
As you said earlier, the companies say what they need to.
exactly.
It's hilarious to me when people talk about like humans getting microchipped. I'm like, dude, you paid for the microchip already. It's in your pocket.
Yep. Yep. And that's just a level of logic fallacy that people don't understand. When I literally get a monthly report of Google telling me, it's like, hey, you were here, 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 and here. Like, this is how long you were on the road. This is how long you were walking. This is the pictures you took while you were here. How was your trip? Yeah, I fully admit that I'm letting Google track that information. It's one of those risk reward things. Like,
Yeah.
I don't care. Like, I literally do the Google rewards survey thing where they'll ask, like, hey, did you go here? Which of these stores did you actually go into? Did you go in and buy anything? I mean, I get like a quarter every time, and they ask enough times that I've gotten like $50 to $100 through it
Hmm.
over the years, just to use on the Play Store.
Yeah. The thing is, if you're really trying to live your life off the grid, you're about 20 years too late.
I mean, yeah, your car's functionality as a service. I want to burn Tesla and what is it, BMW right now, because of all the stuff. Like literally, the hardware is all there. You just have to pay extra to have access to the software that turns it on.
That shit's ridiculous.
Yeah, and we saw it transition with how computers and games went, where it's now software as a service is a thing. Where, hey, you want to have access to, let's say, Adobe Photoshop. It was like $1,000 to buy, and you have quote unquote a lifetime service, or you paid $50 and that's for either an annual or maybe monthly, because it might be quality product, right? What is it? If you've been watching Linus Tech Tips, he's been dealing with there's like a company who, like, their thing is purely the chips associated to colors. So like if you wanted to have a reference chip that you could reach out and communicate with another company, like, I want this specific color on this device, because hey, orange to you may be light orange, dark orange, or something completely different to me, right? And so this company, like, it's $10,000 just to get like a whole spectrum of colors.
Hmm.
They're now in some fighting war with Adobe because they want a cut of the monthly functionality as a service.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. And so like people who have like Adobe have lost access to some of those colors because it fell under that company's purview.
Imagine copywriting colors. This is an
Yep.
America moment.
Yep. Turning a little bit, if you'd like to know like what the level of training I got to get to where I'm at right now. So I started off in one job and I moved to another. So in my 10 years of, or almost 10 years of service, I have probably been in some form of training for 2 full years. So literally getting paid to be trained. Amazing job, right? My first job, I went to basic for 2 months, right? And then I was in Biloxi, Mississippi, which that's where both my trainings were, for like 6 months. And I was trained all the way from what is computers, IT standard stuff, routing and switching, setting up networks, all the way down to we learned how to troubleshoot circuits and actually what is a AND or an OR gate, and did some circuit level planning or code work on that. Not a lot, just enough to say like, yes, we've learned the concepts, right? Our final for that whole section was building a network from scratch. You have all these devices on here, figure out how you want to plug them in, set up all the settings on them so they talk to each other, and then we have another team from our class on the other side of the room that we can't talk to unless we have a phone call, even though they're in the room with us, and we'd say, hey, we want to communicate on this, set up this IP as our side and your IP on that side, that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
So literally being able to set, in theory, the core backbone for a base from scratch.
Right.
And then I got some additional Cisco training equivalency. I then, over the course of that, started my schoolwork or like my normal college. So one of the nice things about the Air Force is if you have an Air Force ID, you also hold a student ID. The Air Force is an accredited regional college or university. And so all of our training is aligned to get you a degree. So I had to do, like, with my background of some college prior, I literally had to do like 2 or 3 classes. A few of them I literally just tested out. I had to take a speech class and voila. I have an associate's in electronic and telecommunications. Then with the whole mission defense team stuff that I was doing, that like Com Squad in the future, where like looking at a specific mission, they threw us through a like month-and-a-half crash course on hacking and security and stuff like that. So the whole gambit of thinking about it. And that's when like I realized, oh, they're throwing all this money at me. I should just go ahead and become the 1 Bravo or cyber warfare operator.
Hmm.
And so applied for that. That was in just shy of 6 months of learning Windows, Linux, networking. How does this all communicate, cybersecurity considerations, and then hack it. And so our little capstone was, hacking each other. Again, because that was just enough to get me the base requirements, I had to, meet some other stupid requirements of just time, and voila, I now have a cybersecurity associate's. Literally just, doing my job, and I got trained it. And then from there, I had the way Air Force does our different mission sets. The tools that we use, the suite of equipment that we use, is created in this little box they call a weapon system. Because it's considered a weapon system, it can get money. Because the Air Force has like, hey, if all designated weapon systems have access to this pot of money. If you want to get like a random piece of hardware there, like why? Well, because we need to set up this equipment, but we have a weapon system. So that kind of thing. And then it's become an interesting hurdle because because that same capability that allowed us to get access to money is now limiting how quickly we can change. If I wanted to put in a new device, I might have to go through like Mother May I make a change, and that can be a problem. So I got trained in one weapon system, which was the defense platform that they use for the teams. And from there, I also got trained in a industry certification that I would argue is probably on par with another associate's. So I have, over the course of my Air Force, I've gotten like 3 certifications: your Security Plus, and then SANS, which is the organization, GNFA, and GCFA. So Certified Network Forensics and Host Forensics. That being said, I feel like I sometimes don't know enough. There's just enough to get you started, right?
When you say forensics, what does that mean compared to network structures or network engineering?
So I would say it's more of you need to understand how the system works, then be able to pull the threads of, okay, is this something malicious or is it just something weird? Well, let's look down the path of what's weird. So kind of in that same sense of, hey, network wise, right? That same thing of, hey, I saw someone logging across 2 computers. That could be a problem. So let's look at one of those computers. How much is it used? Just by the sheer amount of volume, not a lot. Okay. The other one's like, yeah, that looks like your daily. So let's look at the not a lot. What is it doing? Does it reach out externally or like go to the internet? Does it reach internally to some servers? Should I be concerned about what they're talking to? And then you can actually, depending on how your setup is and the security level of the protocol that's being used, I could potentially literally open up with the tools that we have available. Open source, by the way. So you can literally go out and get all this if you know how to set it up. I could look at literally your network traffic of what website you're going to, what's on the page, what images you see. And oh, by the way, if you look up porn, I'm probably going to see it. So it's just pulling that thread from the host side of it. Say your computer's acting wonky. So the network forensic person would first look at, okay, what are the current processes that are running? So like what is actively running right now? And so, okay, I see all the stuff that I know of, the whole bunch of file names or extensions of the standards, and then there's something that looks similar but is not quite. So like, okay, let's look at that. Where is it stored? Well, it's not stored in your Windows 32 file system or whatever. It's stored somewhere in your C drive. That's probably weird. let's look at that. Like it's a continually look at what all that stuff is, and then from there, one thing is to consider you don't want to play whack-a-mole. Hey, that system or that program's running. Stop it. Well, it might immediately start running again. And additionally, it might stand out to, hey, why did my program stop from the hacker's viewpoint? And then you start deleting files. Like that shouldn't be there. I didn't put that there, and that's not Windows. So delete that. Well, they might have a second or third means of getting access. Now, essentially, it's like you're picking at a tick, and it's just digging deeper and deeper and deeper. And instead, you need to excise all the way around all of the bad stuff and pull it out at once.
Problem solving instead of problem fighting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As I like to say, people like to play whack-a-mole when it comes to computers.
Mm-hmm.
Get it off of my network. Well, sir, we need to make sure that's all of it. I'm enlisted, right? I'm a dirty enlisted guy.
Mm-hmm.
Until literally a few months ago, I didn't have my bachelor's. It's not literally the piece of paper, it's the thinking that matters, right? The one thing that I will say about the Air Force is they will give you the opportunities to prove your knowledge set and your capability of learning. And as I said, I've been in 2 years of training, and there's a lot of times where like I still feel like an idiot, but then I see other people do stupid things like, oh, I'm above the average. The requirements just to get into the career field. ASVAB, if you've heard of the ASVAB, it's the standardized military test, right? You've heard of people getting waivers for the ASVAB because, like, hey, dumb guy can't get into infantry. Like, whatever, he can shoot a gun, right? That's like in your 14 to 30 range. Some of your higher level skill stats in the 50s or whatnot. Our requirement is like 70 something, like low 70s, just on the testing part. And then from there, you actually have to take an additional test that's not required for all military, electronic data processing test or something like that. And ironically, the test is on paper, but it's literally logic questions. There's a triangle that's shaped this way, then you have a square that's like 45 degrees, and then the triangle shaped this way. What's the square going to do? Yeah, so it's like symbols. There is word association and just pure definition. So if you know the definitions, that makes a difference. Solid amount of math. Yeah, so a lot of people that, hey, ASVAB, they're good, but they suck at this one, EDPT, and it's kind of a salty point for a lot of people because you can't just retake the test. You have to wait 6 months before you can take it again.
And it's kind of crazy that one number can really sort you.
Mm-hmm. I mean, granted, early on in the career field, when they were starting to build it up, they had a fail rate of like in the 50s to 60s range. So that's why they had to be a little bit stringent. And now, obviously, part of it was possibly bad instructors, or there was a lot of hard-end material to learn. So now they've kind of gotten to a point where they're making it better. The pass rate's a little bit higher.
And is that by lowering the bar, or is that by getting people that are better at it and getting them better at it?
I would say maybe slightly lowering the bar, and not a lot. It sounds more that you have people who actually want to be there now. One of the things is you can get non-voluntarily assigned to it. And it's supposed to be like, hey, most of the time we want people who want to be there. I know a few people who have been non-voluntarily assigned. You have now a lot of people who are vested in it. They actually are excited to be instructors. And that inherently means that people are going to learn from that enthusiasm. They gave me 2 years of training. I'm going to give them 3 to 4 years as an instructor now. From the defensive standpoint, yeah, I'm working on these missions, and some of them, honestly, are PR. You can Google this, look up Cyber Command Hunt Forward Operations. And what it is it's literally just the U.S. government, State Department, is communicating to another foreign nation and say, hey, we have these specially trained cyber teams. And how about we reach an agreement and we send our guys over to your network and just part training, part let's investigate your network and see if we find anything. Yeah, so there's that. I didn't do a lot of missions in that circumstance. And then where I'm currently at, it was kind of a day in, day out, 24-hour operations center. There were some people that you could see the joy has left their face, and you're like, I know you're not really going to hurt yourself, but we jokingly like, don't kill yourself. So the big thing is you have 3 8-hour shifts, days, swings, and mids. 2 months of days, 2 months of swings, 2 months of mids. Rinse and repeat. And it's just, it fucks with your body. And then if you have a family, hey, I'm working, 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. When am I going to see you?
Yeah.
I guess I'll see you in bed or when you wake up. And oh, by the way, I guess because I'm, my body's wired to not immediately pass out as soon as I get done with work, I'm going to be up until 3 a.m, sleeping during the day, all the lights, and it just messes with you. On my previous base, because it was space, they just decided we're going to do what's called Panama schedules, which is 12-hour shifts, 2 days on, 2 days off, 3 days on, and then the flip. So then 2 days off, 2 days on, 3 days off. So 2 days of leave and you get a whole week off. It's like, okay, I can't complain. But then it's 12-hour shifts, days. 2 months later, 12-hour shifts, nights.
Oh,
Um,
that
and
switch must be hell.
yes, there's a reason people got prescribed Ambien while they were there a few times. And it just again ruins that family life relationship. The other part about it is in my work life, I have very rarely seen a window. People jokingly literally print out a picture of a window and put it on their wall because we just like you can't. I mean, I've been to one facility that I worked there for a few years where like they actually had windows, but that was like what the fuck. This
Yeah.
isn't right. Something's wrong. And the reason is there's spy tech that like clear open information, right? They can shoot a laser at a window and the vibrations of the window will reflect back. Because that vibrations, you can actually interpret what's being said in there. It's just the same thing as putting your head up against a door or whatever and hearing that communication. So I think there's like capabilities of you put some kind of vibrating device against the window and it prevents that actual being heard. The other fun part about working those Panama schedules is go in at 5 in the morning, sun's not up, get done at 5 p.m. and you're leaving like 5:30ish. Yeah, sun's already down. There's a lot of people who's like, fuck this shit. I'm out of the Air Force as soon as I can be.
You've mentioned that like Air Force is a lot better off when it comes to treatment than the other branches.
Yes.
But
Yeah. So, I mean, the saying is that the DoD has 2 military branches: the Army, the Navy. The Marines is a dog they keep in a cage and kick until they release it for war. The Air Force is a corporation. With that being said, there's subculture sections in the military branches, right? You're going to have people who drive tanks will have rivalry with the people who walk and that are their scouts. And there's like a skill set, camaraderie, and like hating each other. All the grunts in the field, they like to call people who sit back and do all the supply stuff pogues, person other than grunt. For the Air Force, we have what's called nonners. Anyone who does not get the plane in the sky with weapons is a nonner if you don't do that. So that could be the maintainer, the fuel, the ammunition guy who puts on the system. And the ammo guys, they have their own little saying is, if you ain't ammo, you ain't shit. It's such a group suffering, so they have to kind of make it justifiable, right? And by group suffering, they're pulling those 10 to 12-hour shifts on a regular basis. Boss will say, hey, something's wrong. You have to do X, Y, and Z. You're going to stay late. And they're critically manned. And people bounce as soon as they can because they realize how much it wears on their body, how many accidents occur, and suicides for them is bad. Of the career fields for the Air Force, I'd say, to my understanding, maintenance and security forces have some of the highest level of suicides across the Air Force. Yeah, then you have all the other stuff. You have the medical, the admin, finance, fuck finance. I'm lucky. I've never gotten screwed by them. But horror story after horror story I've heard of finance fucking up people's pay bad. There's a guy that I know who got assigned to PCS, so move duty stations to Aviano, Italy. And I was like, okay, that sounds amazing. As soon as he showed up, they stopped paying him.
Oh.
And the thing is like, you're in a foreign country and you're not getting paid. And he's like airman basic to A1C. So like you get paid pennies. So he has no kind of nest egg stored up. And so he had to literally, max out credit cards just to get by. And the Air Force does have some like, hey, you can get it's called a Falcon loan. So a short term, like up to like $700 loan or something like that. But the bullshittery is they require you to fill out a budget with them to get that loan. It's like, budget. I want paid, damn it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so stupid. Ironically, that same motherfucker lucked out when he changed over to our career field. We have what's called a special duty pay and re-enlistment bonus. So due to Air Force fuckery and paperwork, somehow or another they missed cross T dotted I kind of situation, and I won't say lost, but they said his re-enlistment was invalid. That was in his previous career field. Well, after he just trained to our career field, he all of a sudden like, oh, I'm now a 1 Bravo. I can get that re-enlistment bonus. Maxed it out. And like by maxed out, we're talking $90K. And that's for adding 6 years of service on top of what your standard pay is.
$90K as a bonus. That's wild.
Yeah. So it's like whatever your base pay is times the number of years that you're adding on times whatever the bonus is assigned, like the multiplier. So it
Mhm.
goes from 0.5 all the way up to a 5 multiplier. And we were, at the time, I think we were a 5.
Wow, and that's just based on their need for people?
Yeah. So it literally is, how many slots do we have? How many people are out or going out of the Air Force that either just like they're refusing to reenlist or they're literally getting too old? And how many people are filling in the slots? And it's just like that math problem is like, we need people, add money.
Yeah.
One of the things is that stands out to a lot of people in our career field of, hey, I get paid more in the civilian sector, and not like a little bit more, but significantly more. Why should I stay in the Air Force if I can literally come back as a civilian or a contractor, do the same damn job, and get paid more?
Yeah, because you have skills now. Like, there are companies that would hire you right out the door.
Yeah, I literally like saw the writing on the wall and like, okay, I at least need to set up a LinkedIn, add some people, and like recruiters keep adding me. And my thought is, as soon as I'm like, hey, I'm 6 months out, anyone hiring? I know that I'm going to get people offers. And then friends would basically be like, hey, reference me and you'll get like I'll get a little bit of extra money. I'm content with where I have right now. I'm not pursuing constant like large scale schemes of being the super tech guy, right? I just want a job that pays the bills, and with the retirement, I'd be happy to have that on there. One of the things is, as soon as I hit 20 and retire, I'm going to get the highest pay bump that most anyone in their life is going to get, because not only am I going to potentially get a pay bump flat out, but I'm also going to tack on whatever my monthly is from my retirement benefits. I will get the monthly benefits or monthly pay. I'll have access to the military medical facilities, stuff like that. But I'm not like officially retired, because I'll still go out and work after that.
Do you feel like the military will take care of you afterward?
To an extent, and this is going to get a little bit into politics, we have a subset of our politicians who are actively trying to refuse care of our veterans. Right now, I don't know if I'll have disability items. I mean, I probably will, just because my back is in pain right now, right? But is it enough to get me disability benefits? And then they always fight, well, that wasn't service related, or so on and so forth. Like, I have tinnitus in my ears. I probably went in a little bit with it, but it wasn't found. And then it clearly has gotten worse. And I've been in server rooms that were just constantly whirring. I had to yell to be heard. So I'm going to be like, I got tinnitus, probably was service related. If they try to fight me on it, go to that facility. I will tell you that it's bad.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you got that. I'll probably get a good portion, but a lot of people have to fight for it. And it sucks that that's the case.
Yeah, and we all know the stories of the homeless veterans that came back from Vietnam. Like,
So, yeah, a lot of that is you get people who all they know is infantry. They know how to kill. They have no developed skills outside of that. And that's one of the reasons why, like, when I was young and dumb, I was thinking, I'm going to be a tanker, or, commander of a platoon of tanks, or I'm going to work in artillery or air defense artillery. None of those have a civilian sector equivalencies. So WTF, right? Then I made the realization when I enlisted, it's like, I'd rather do comm, I'd rather do cyber. And so that's what I started doing. Like, there's a direct correlation.
and did you do cyber primarily because of the fact that you are set for life when it comes to skills?
I wasn't pursuing it. It was one of those, I understand, or like I can think at a larger scale that I think a lot of people don't consider. Having that person teach me his doctoral thesis probably was not the, oh, I'm learning straight from that, but it was kind of opening the door of, yes, I think that way, and a lot of people don't. And so it's just following the path and the doors that have been opened for me. I don't get a lot of hands-on keyboard anymore because the organization I'm in, it was a lot more of planning and, hey, square peg, square hole, so on and so forth, of this organization or this unit needs to take care of this problem, this unit needs to take care of this, that kind of stuff, where I'm planning large-scale events. And I find that I am a really good planner. One of the things that there is a class divide between officers and enlisted. The funny joke is, okay, in the Army, the officer stands behind and sends their troops forward, right? What does the Air Force do? The dirty enlisted put their officers in the planes and send them forward so that they're the ones putting their lives in the line, but the enlisted are staying behind hunky and dory. We've tricked our officers, right? But the class divide very much can be obvious when you start getting into some joint training environments. So I was in a class where I literally had, I think, like 2 colonels, 3 lieutenant colonels, a handful of majors, captains, and lieutenants, and I'm like lowly tech sergeant. There's another tech sergeant in the room. I'm still probably the most junior guy in the entire class. And then I got done with the class, and it was like a planning thing. It was like ranked number 2 in the entire class. Like, oh shit, that's going on my EPR. We also have that, like, I wouldn't say a class divide, but cyber guys are constantly fighting about how cyber is more important than anything else. Are we called the Cyber Force, or are we called the Air Force?
Mm.
And so that was a class where it was like a slap in the face of, we still plan warheads on foreheads. Stop thinking cyber is special.
What makes it so that Air Force cyber is so distinct? Because, I mean, we have three of the alphabet agencies, NSA, CIA, FBI, that have entire teams for this already. What is it that makes Air Force need it?
Some of those organizations or those teams come from the military branches.
Mm.
So if you look at it, there's Cyber Command, which is on par, it's a combatant command. So essentially, Congress mandated that we're stating European Command is a like 2 to 4 star general command, North Command, which is all of the U.S. and Northern America, Pacific Command and all that, right? So Cyber Command is on that level. All the different branches will basically say, okay, hey, we have this team. We train and equip them. Here you go, operate them. You assign them and you tell them to do whatever the heck they're doing. And that's like all those combatant commands do that. So it could be that we're signed up with Northcom. You have a team that's literally at the beck and call of North Command, so on and so forth. The big thing about Air Force, Navy, and Marines and Army cyber teams is, from my understanding of the branches, it's literally the Navy, Marines, Army, actually no, Air Force, and then Army are the top of the skill sets. The Navy, the problem is that they cycle out too much. So you get these guys who are not adequately trained, and as soon as they get to that point, they immediately move, and so they don't get more training. I think the Marines kind of slow that down a little bit. The Army, they throw money at their people, and by throw money, I mean I get like an extra $300 to $400 a month for my skill set. The Army gets like an extra 1,500.
Jeez.
And then additionally, they have what's called warrant officers, which is a point of contention for the Air Force because we don't have them. Primer on what a warrant officer is they are essentially officers, but they don't worry about the administrative side. These people are literally your technical experts, and like literally comes from the enlisted force. You prove that you have knowledge set, you have a bachelor's, and then they throw you into a warrant officer billet. And then from there on, ironically, your title is then Mr. It is not warrant, it is not chief warrant, it's just Mr. your last name. And you don't play the same fuck games about officers and the paperwork side as much. It is, you literally can just be like, sir, respectfully, no. That is not happening. You'll find warrant officers as pilots for helicopters, I think, in the Army. I think Ace or Space would kind of give you a little bit more on that. But on the cyber side, they have a lot of those warrant officers. They give that money to keep that skill set in. And then the Air Force is where we're kind of doing that, but we're still growing as an organization because we're relatively small in that sense. And then one of the problems is that you still have cyber guys in cyber positions, but people who are telling them to go do sometimes are not cyber experts.
When someone sends a team of you guys to do a job, how many of you really know the kind of stuff you do? How many of you are your skills specifically, and how many of them are something completely different that are needed for the team?
I would say about 25% are like the extra items or extra skill sets. As for like level equivalency is, I would potentially say about a third is your top tier guys, third is your middle, and then the bottom third is your trainees or your people who are just new.
I wanted to ask you, because you started what year?
I enlisted in 2013. I joined the One Bravo community or cyber warfare operations in 2016.
I'm guessing a lot has changed in those, 6 years?
A lot of it's just more of the development of Internet of Things. The larger platform or like vulnerability points is like the more you build a network. Think of it this way: is if I'm building a home, the larger the home is, the more points of ingress for someone to break in.
Yeah.
I could keep opening and closing windows. Eventually, I'll forget to close the one window over here, kind of thing. As I said, like I have some of the smart home things. They are not interconnected. I do not want my Google Mini talking to my door or my fridge doing X, Y, and Z. Like most of it is I just keep the dumb stuff. Like I like my Google environment because I like to play music on it. I literally have the daily routine of, hey, what's the news going on? Do I have anything on my schedule and calendar? And like that kind of stuff helps me get through the day. I'm pretty minimalistic in that sense. I don't need a lot of flair. Like I'm not going to have a light bulb that, turns on and off when I say, turn off the room or whatever. It's like, how hard is it for me to go walk over and flick the switch?
Yeah.
Now, my thermostat, that is a godsend. I have it on my phone. First off, when I'm upstairs, comfy in bed, or at least somewhat comfy, and it's kind of cold, like. But the other thing is it actually saved me about a 30 to an hour drive or multiple times. So Snowmageddon, 2021, Texas, when we lost all of our power in that February, my house was out for about 5 days, I think,
Whoa.
and I had a 2-year-old at the time, and we had a nice big master bedroom. We had all of us in the master bedroom, and I had candles on, and the dogs in the bedroom with us, the little ones staying in the bed because we have a king, luckily. And then halfway through the night, I realized, shit, carbon monoxide is a thing. Got up and started blowing out all the candles, and it's like, damn it, it's gonna be cold. That morning was miserable. Little one didn't have food. We didn't have a mean of cooking things. We went out and everyone was looking for food. So anyone who had power had super long lines. Otherwise, it was, a ghost town, right? We ended up crashing at a friend's that did have power, and they were on the opposite side of town. And the one thing I realized about the next day is like, oh shit, a thermostat, I can reach it from here. So I'd check on it. If I had power, it would actually tell me what the temperature was and all of that. It's like saved me so much going back and forth. I had no other way of testing whether I had power or not. And I was able to determine like, oh yeah, it turned on 4 hours ago. Let's get a few more hours, and if it's still on by this afternoon, we're gonna head home.
Yeah. And kind of like going back to the work, that's a really cool part of technology is finding ways to use that the guys who made it didn't even think of.
Exactly. It's like that out of the box thinking type stuff.
Yeah, and that's part of what makes you so good at your job is like you said, you think of these things just from a different angle. Like not
Hmm.
only it's not just the people with malicious intent that need to be able to do that. Like doing your job, there's a lot of good that can come from it beyond just the pen testing aspect.
Yeah. So there's types of networks, like with your power and oil and all that. They're called SCADA networks. These are so your normal IP type of networks. That CIA triad. They like to focus a little bit on that confidentiality to somewhat, right? SCADA networks. 100% availability, because all they are sensors that communicate to things that interpret that data and display it to a user. In that capabilities, that user can also interact and, hey, we need to tweak the flow of oil here, or whatever the pressure is this at this point. Okay, I can cause some mayhem by shutting everything down, but what if I upped the pressure? What would
Ooh.
happen then? What would happen if I, blocked off all path of this, or, didn't show that level to, the other guys? I mean, you've heard of Stuxnet before, right? Big, like this was one of the first true weaponizations of cyber. And I think it was like in '07 to 11 timeframe, maybe even before that. Stuxnet was a not Intel I've read at all, right? They got it in there via a USB. Either they dropped a USB in the area and had someone convince them to plug it in or whatnot, and it propagates itself. And then once it does that, it starts tweaking the settings just a little bit, but it doesn't show the real settings of what it's at. So kind of like your thermostat, it's like, man, it's fucking cold in here, but it still says it's 76. Well, that's what
Hmm.
it's doing, is it's dropping the temperature and then still displaying what you want it to see.
That sounds very bad, I guess would be my response to that.
Hmm. And now Stuxnet is out in the open, that anyone with enough skill set can take that malware, tweak it a little bit to do whatever they want, and then send it right back out. Because that is the really interesting thing when it comes to malware, is the after you use it, the genie is out of the bottle. If I wanted to say use this special little technique that gets me access to this network, like say it is an adversary nation, so whatever nation you want to say, right? It has now fully been used. That nation may be able to take that malware, reverse engineer it, and then tweak some things and send it right back at us. And that is a decision point that needs to be made on, is it worthwhile for that access or that vulnerability that you're breaking, so on and so forth. Because that's the other part. The first time you use that vulnerability, Now it's been proven that that is a vulnerability. Is that vulnerability also used across the entire civilian sector, or is it a very niche thing? Look up Deviant Olm. For him, it's all the talks of like security in the general practice, and he'll break things that you just don't even think about, and it just makes you think a little bit differently. Lockpicking lawyer, if you like want to learn about lockpicking, and it's that same concept of looks great, but you just completely ignored what best practice is. And it's just like those are primers of not even hacking, but security. That's the one thing I would say is a priority in consideration. Is I'm more of a security experience kind of guy, or understanding that. Yes, there is the cyber side of it, but
It's a mindset.
yeah, and it really is like I can't remember what the heck it was. There's plenty of times where I look at people having problems with something they want to open or whatnot. I was like, if only I had my lockpick set, I could probably open that for you.
Yeah. Well, I feel smarter just having been here. And I really do
Oh, it's fun.
appreciate the explanation of not only the work but the mindset that you have to have for it.
Yeah, it's something that not everyone thinks about, and obliviousness is not the best.
Tell me a story, I wanna hear it. You might think it's boring, but I'm interested. Tell me a story, I wanna hear it. You might think it's boring, but I'm interested.